Welcome back to Secrets Exposed. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. You're the reason these stories worth sharing. Tell us where you're watching from, city or country. We're amazed by how far these tales reach. To get daily new and amazing stories for you, subscribe our channel and press bell icon. All right, let's begin. The night was heavy, the kind of silence that pressed against the skin and made every sound sharper. Captain Aaron Hale stood at the gate of his own home, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder, still wearing the creased fatigues from his long flight back. 11 months overseas, 11 months of sand, sweat, and survival. And this was supposed to be the moment of relief. He pictured it countless times on the battlefield. His daughter, Emma, running down the porch steps into his arms, his wife, Claire, smiling through tears. Instead, he was met with a house that looked abandoned. The windows were dark, curtains drawn, no welcoming light, no sound of laughter. Aaron frowned, shifting his bag off his shoulder. His boots crunched against the gravel as he approached the porch. He expected to see Claire's car in the driveway, but the space was empty. A sour taste filled his mouth. Maybe she had taken Emma to her mother's. Maybe they'd surprise him later. But why lock the house and leave everything so cold? He set the bag down on the porch and inhaled, trying to calm the unease spreading in his chest. Then he saw it. At the far corner of the backyard, beneath the oak tree where Emma used to play, the earth looked disturbed. Patches of dirt were uneven, clumped like it had been dug recently. Aaron's brow furrowed. He stepped down from the porch, his instincts, honed from years in war, screaming that something was wrong. His boots sank into the damp soil as he moved closer. And then the ground shifted, just a fraction at first, like the soil itself was breathing. Aaron froze, his heart hammering. He blinked, unsure if fatigue was playing tricks on him. But no, there was again. The dirt rose slightly, then fell. Something was beneath. Without thinking, he dropped to his knees, his palms pressing into the soil. He began clawing at it with bare hands, nails splitting against roots and stones. Each handful of dirt he threw aside only deepened the terror rising in his chest. He dug faster, breathing hard, whispering Emma's name without even realizing it. Then he felt it. A small hand, limp, fingers twitching weakly. God! Oh God, no! Aaron gasped, digging frantically. His heart pounded so hard it drowned out every other sound. He uncovered a pale face smeared with soil, eyelids fluttering, lips trembling as if fighting for air. It was Emma, his little girl. Aaron's throat closed, his vision blurred. He scooped her up, cradling her against his chest, brushing dirt from her mouth. Emma, baby, it's Daddy. Stay with me. Please stay with me. She coughed weakly, a faint whimper escaping her cracked lips. Her chest rose and fell shallowly, every breath a battle. Her small fingers clutched at his uniform, clinging as though sensing he was the only anchor keeping her alive. Tears stung Aaron's eyes as he rocked her, whispering, I've got you. You're safe. Daddy's here now. But his relief was short-lived. Emma's eyelids fluttered open, just enough to reveal the terrified glaze of her eyes. Her voice, hoarse and broken, scraped out in barely a whisper. Daddy, he said I was too loud. The words stabbed Aaron's chest like a blade. He pulled her tighter, his jaw trembling. Who, baby? Who said that? But her body shuddered against him, too weak to answer. Aaron staggered to his feet, holding Emma close. His eyes darted across the empty yard, every shadow suddenly hostile. He had fought insurgents, faced death head-on, but this was different. The enemy wasn't across an ocean. The enemy was here, inside his home. He carried Emma toward the porch, his mind a storm of rage and fear. Each step was heavier than the last, as if the truth waited just beyond the door, ready to shatter his world in ways no war ever could. And deep inside, Aaron knew this was only the beginning. Aaron stumbled into the house, clutching Emma tightly against his chest. Her tiny body felt so fragile, her breath shallow and uneven. Dirt clung to her hair, streaked across her cheeks, smeared into the folds of her pajamas. The living room was dark, curtains drawn, the air stale with the faint smell of alcohol. He kicked the door shut behind him and laid her down carefully on the couch, his hands trembling as he brushed the soil from her face. "Stay with me, baby. Just breathe for Daddy," he whispered, his voice cracking. Emma's chest rose in jerks, her lips gasping like she couldn't pull in enough air. Aaron tore off his jacket and wrapped it around her, holding her close for warmth. He pressed his ear to her chest, listening for the rhythm of her heart. Faint but still there. Relief and terror collided inside him. He kissed her forehead, rocking her gently. His mind raced through battlefield, triage training, airway, breathing, circulation, but this wasn't war. This was his daughter, his little girl who should have been asleep at her bed, safe, dreaming of his return. Her eyelids fluttered. "Daddy," her voice was so faint, it was almost swallowed by the silence. "I'm here," he answered instantly. Her lips quivered, her breath shaky. He said I was too loud. Aaron froze, his stomach twisting. He cupped her face, whispering urgently, "Who, Emma? Who said that? Tell me." Her gaze wandered unfocused, her body shivering, and then her eyes closed again. She drifted into unconsciousness, leaving Aaron trembling with rage. He held her tighter, rocking her as though he could shield her from whatever monster had dared touch her. The silence of the house grew heavier. Aaron's ears strained for any sound. Footsteps, breathing, a whisper, but only the creak of old would answer him. He felt exposed, like the walls themselves were holding secrets. His throat tightened. Memories flashed. Claire's laugh, Emma's voice calling for him during video calls overseas, promises whispered in letters. How could everything feel so wrong now? He grabbed his phone from his pocket, thumb hovering over 911. But hesitation gripped him. His training, his instincts told him not to act blindly. First, he had to know what he was up against. Who was in his home? Who had hurt Emma? Aaron lifted Emma gently and began pacing the room. His boots thudded softly on the floorboards, each step echoing his restless fury. He whispered reassurances into her hair. "You're safe now. Daddy's here. I won't let anyone hurt you again." But even as he spoke the words, a noise cut through the silence, the faint creak of the back door. Aaron's muscles tensed, his heart hammering. He turned his head slowly toward the sound. In the dim glow of the kitchen light, a shadow stretched across the floor. A figure stepped inside, tall, broad-shouldered. The man's shirt was half-buttoned, his hair disheveled, his expression calm, as though he belonged here. Aaron's arms tightened protectively around Emma. His voice was a low growl. "Who the hell are you?" The man's eyes flicked to Emma in Aaron's arms. A smirk touched his lips. "She shouldn't have been outside," he said casually, his tone chilling in its indifference. "She was screaming too much." The words hit Aaron like a punch to the chest. His vision darkened with rage. The man didn't flinch, didn't deny, didn't even try to explain. He spoke as though burying a child was nothing more than silencing noise. Aaron's jaw clenched, his knuckles white as he fought the urge to lunge forward. Emma whimpered faintly in his arms, grounding him, reminding him that her fragile life hung in the balance. He couldn't lose control, not yet. He glared at the intruder, his voice trembling with restrained fury. "What did you do to my daughter?" The man leaned against the doorway, utterly unfazed. "Kept her quiet. That's all." Aaron's entire body shook with rage, but his training screamed at him. Control, observe, wait for the right moment. He didn't know how deep this betrayal went, but one truth settled heavy in his chest. The war he thought he left behind had only just begun, and the battlefield was now inside his own home. Aaron's arms locked protectively around Emma, every muscle coiled tight. The stranger stood in his kitchen like he belonged there, the faint yellow glow of the overhead light outlining his frame. He was tall, broad, his dark hair messy, shirt half unbuttoned like he'd rolled out of a bed that wasn't his. But it wasn't his presence alone that made Aaron's blood boil. It was his calmness, his lack of fear, the way his smirk lingered, even after admitting to burying Emma alive. Aaron's voice was low, every word edged with steel. "You've got 3 seconds to tell me who you are before I end this right here." The man didn't flinch. He leaned against the counter, arms folded casually across his chest. "Name's Tyler. And you must be Aaron." Aaron's chest tightened. The man knew his name. He said it like they'd met before, like he had every right to stand here in Aaron's house. Tyler's eyes flicked down to Emma, then back to Aaron with a spark of amusement. "She kept screaming for you," Tyler said coolly. "Every night. Wouldn't stop. Claire said it was driving her crazy." Aaron froze at the mention of his wife's name. Claire. His wife, the woman who had sent him letters full of promises while he fought overseas. His breath came sharp and uneven. "What did you just say?" Tyler shrugged, pushing off the counter. "Relax. I didn't hurt her. At least not much. Just quieted her down. Claire said it would be better for everyone." Aaron's vision blurred red. He took a step forward, Emma's weight in his arms the only thing stopping him from lunging at the man. "Don't you dare say her name like that." For the first time, Tyler's smirk faltered, his eyes narrowing. "You think you still know her? You've been gone a long time, soldier. Things change." Aaron's heart thudded painfully against his ribs. He glanced around the kitchen, looking for any sign of Claire, her voice, her presence, but the house was silent. Silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and Emma's shallow breaths against his chest. "Where is she?" Aaron demanded. The back hallway creaked. Aaron's head snapped toward it, and there she was. Claire. She looked like a ghost of the woman he remembered. Hair messy, face pale, eyes rimmed with red. She wore an oversized sweater, her feet bare on the hardwood floor. She froze in the doorway, her gaze locking on Aaron and Emma. For a long, unbearable moment, no one spoke. Aaron's throat tightened, tears stinging his eyes. "Claire!" His voice cracked, part relief, part horror. "What the hell is going on?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her gaze shifted to Tyler, then to Emma, then back to Aaron. She looked trapped, cornered. Finally, in a voice so soft it barely carried, she whispered, "You weren't supposed to be home yet." Aaron's stomach dropped. The words hit him harder than any explosion he'd faced in combat. He stared at her, searching for something, remorse, denial, even confusion, but all he saw was fear. "You knew," Aaron whispered, the realization clawing its way up his chest. His voice grew louder, shaking. "You knew she was out there. You let this happen." Claire's hands trembled at her sides, but she didn't deny it. She didn't even move. The silence screamed louder than words. Tyler stepped forward, his voice low, almost mocking. "Don't look so surprised. You left a hole, Aaron. I filled it." He gestured casually around the room, as if this house was his now. Claire needed someone. And Emma, well, she just got in the way. Aaron's grip on Emma tightened, his fury bubbling over. He had faced death on the battlefield, stared down enemies with weapons in their hands, but nothing had prepared him for this, for betrayal in his own home, for the realization that the enemy wasn't across the ocean but standing in his kitchen, smirking at him, and sleeping in his wife's bed. Aaron's voice was hoarse, almost broken. "If either of you so much as look at her again, I swear." Emma stirred weakly in his arms, whimpering. Her small voice broke the tension like glass. "Daddy," Aaron swallowed hard, forcing his rage down because she needed him calm. He kissed the top of her head, whispering, "I'm here. I've got you." Then he looked up, his eyes burning holes through both Tyler and Claire. The battlefield had followed him home. And this time, the fight was for his daughter's life. The silence in the room pressed against Aaron like a weight, heavier than the armor he had worn for months in combat. He stood clutching Emma, her faint breaths warming his chest, while Claire lingered in the hallway doorway. Her bare feet were rooted to the hardwood floor, her hands trembling at her sides. She looked at him, but she didn't move closer. She didn't rush to Emma. She didn't speak. Aaron's heart hammered. He searched her eyes for something, guilt, love, remorse, but what he saw was hesitation. That hesitation cut deeper than any blade. "Claire," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Say something. Tell me this isn't what it looks like." Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her gaze flicked to Tyler, who leaned casually against the kitchen counter, watching the scene like it was theater. The smirk had returned to his lips, though his eyes were sharper now, more alert. Aaron's jaw clenched. Don't look at him. Look at me. I came home for her. He shifted Emma in his arms, and this is what I walk into. Claire's chest rose and fell quickly, her breath shallow. You weren't supposed to be home yet, she murmured again, the same haunting words as before. Aaron's mind twisted. You weren't supposed to be home yet. Not I'm glad you're alive. No, I'm sorry. No, I didn't know. Just cold, empty shock at his arrival. His blood turned to ice. Answer me, Claire. His voice thundered now, his pain boiling over. Did you know Emma was out there? Did you know she was buried alive? Emma stirred weakly in his arms, her tiny fingers clutching his uniform. Aaron softened instantly, rocking her against him, but his eyes never left Claire. Claire shook her head slowly, but the movement lacked conviction. I didn't, she faltered, her words breaking apart like glass on stone. Tyler chuckled, stepping forward just enough to close the space between them. Don't let her lie to you, Aaron. She knew. She told me to do it. Aaron's stomach dropped. He turned his head sharply toward Claire. Tell me he's lying. Claire's body stiffened. Her eyes glistened with tears she didn't let fall. She opened her mouth, but no sound came. That silence was louder than any confession. Aaron's legs trembled under the weight of it all. The woman he had loved, the mother of his child, stood frozen while another man claimed her loyalty. He had faced bombs, bullets, and a constant threat of death overseas, but nothing prepared him for this. Betrayal not from an enemy, but from his wife. He whispered again, his voice softer now, almost pleading. Why, Claire? Why would you let this happen? She's your daughter. Claire finally blinked, her tears slipping down her cheeks. She wrapped her arms around herself like she was trying to hold her body together. Her voice shook. I couldn't handle it anymore. Aaron's chest tightened. Handle what? Claire glanced toward Emma, then back at him. The truth hovered at her lips, unspoken, but her silence screamed everything. The resentment, the exhaustion, the whispers of guilt. Aaron shook his head slowly, rocking Emma in his arms. His voice cracked, trembling between fury and heartbreak. You were supposed to protect her. Both of you were supposed to protect her when I couldn't. And you let this happen. Tyler's smirk widened, feeding off Aaron's pain. Told you, soldier. Things changed. Aaron's eyes narrowed at him, his rage burning hotter than fire. But when he looked back at Claire, the rage was replaced with something worse, devastation. For the first time, he realized his wife wasn't just silent because of fear. She was silent because she had chosen her side, and it wasn't his. Aaron kissed Emma's hair, whispering into her ear, though the words were meant for everyone in the room. No matter what it takes, I'll protect you. I won't let anyone silence you again. And as he held her tighter, he knew the war he thought was over had only just begun, and this battlefield was his own home. The room pulsed with tension, the kind that made the air thick and suffocating. Aaron stood in the center of his own living room, clutching Emma to his chest. The dim lamp on the side table cast weak light across the space, painting shadows across Claire's pale face and Tyler's smug grin. Emma stirred faintly in Aaron's arms, her voice no more than a broken whisper. Daddy, he pushed me down. Aaron froze, his eyes locking on Tyler. His pulse thundered in his ears. He crouched slightly, brushing Emma's hair back. Sure, it's okay, baby. Daddy's got you. He kissed her temple before slowly raising his head. The fire in his eyes was unmistakable. You buried my daughter. Tyler's smirk barely faltered. He spread his arms lazily, as if none of this mattered. Don't act so shocked. She wouldn't stop crying, wouldn't stop screaming your name every night. Claire said. Aaron snapped. He lunged, his free arm slamming Tyler against the wall, the sound reverberating through the house. Tyler grunted, but didn't resist, a grin tugging at the corner of his lips like he enjoyed provoking him. You touch my daughter, Aaron roared, his knuckles tightening around Tyler's shirt. You put her in the ground like she was nothing. Tyler chuckled darkly, even as Aaron's fury pressed against him. I didn't come up with it, soldier. You think I wanted to deal with that kid? No, I was told. By her. His chin jerked toward Claire. Aaron's breath hitched. Slowly, almost unwillingly, he turned to face his wife. Claire stood frozen in the doorway, tears glistening in her eyes, hands clutching her sweater like she could hide inside it. Her face was pale, lips trembling. She looked like someone standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing a single step would mean a fall she couldn't come back from. "Tell me he's lying," Aaron demanded, his voice rough, raw. "Claire, please. Tell me he's lying." Claire's lips parted, but no words came out. She shook her head weakly, but it wasn't a denial. It was hesitation. Her silence screamed louder than anything she could have said. Aaron's knees weakened, his chest tightening as though all the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. His hand released Tyler, letting him stumble back. Aaron staggered a step forward, clutching Emma tighter, his voice breaking. "Why, Claire? Why would you?" Claire finally spoke, her words sharp with anguish. "You don't understand." Her voice cracked as the tears finally spilled. "Every night, Aaron, every night she cried for you. Every time she asked where you were when you'd come back. Do you know what it's like to hear that over and over again, knowing you're gone, knowing she'll never stop?" Aaron's heart tore apart in his chest. He looked at Emma, innocent, fragile, still clinging to him, and then back at Claire. "She's a child. Our child. She missed her father." Claire shook her head violently, her hair falling across her face. "No, you don't get it. It wasn't just missing you, it was constant. She wouldn't eat. She wouldn't sleep. She wouldn't let me breathe. It was like I didn't exist anymore." Aaron's throat closed. "So what, Claire? You thought the answer was to bury her alive? To silence her?" Claire sobbed harder, her voice ragged. "I thought, if she saw that you weren't coming back, if she finally believed it, she'd stop." Aaron staggered backward, horrified. The woman he had loved, the woman he had trusted with his life and his child, had chosen silence over love. Tyler straightened his shirt with a smug shrug. "See? I told you. I was just following orders." Aaron's rage surged again, but now it was mixed with something heavier, grief. He looked at Claire, his chest heaving, and realized that the betrayal cut deeper than Tyler's smugness. It wasn't just her silence. It wasn't just her hesitation. It was that she had chosen, and she hadn't chosen Emma. Emma whimpered softly in his arms, grounding him once more. He kissed her hair, whispering, "I've got you. Daddy's not going anywhere." When he lifted his gaze again, his voice was low, deadly calm. "This isn't over. Not by a long shot." The battlefield inside his home had just shifted, and Aaron knew the truth was only beginning to surface. The room felt like it was collapsing in on itself. The shadows stretched across the walls, the silence thick enough to choke on. Aaron stood at the center, Emma clinging faintly to his chest, while Claire trembled in the doorway. Her tears ran freely now, streaks glistening in the dim light. Aaron's voice shook as he spoke, not from weakness but from the storm raging inside him. "You're her mother, Claire, the one person she should always be safe with." "And you told him," his glare sliced toward Tyler, "to put her in the ground?" Claire wrapped her arms tightly around herself as if she could fold into her sweater and vanish. I didn't mean for it to go that far," she whispered. Her voice was ragged, desperate. "I just needed it to stop. I needed her to stop screaming your name every night. I needed silence." Aaron's grip on Emma tightened protectively. His throat burned as he fought back tears. "Silence? You buried silence over love? Over our daughter?" Claire's sob grew harsher, shaking her whole body. "You left me here alone, Aaron. You went off to fight your war, and I was the one stuck with the fallout. Do you know how many nights she cried until she vomited? How many times she begged me to call you when I couldn't? She hated me, Aaron. She looked at me like I wasn't enough, like I was nothing, and I couldn't take it anymore." Aaron staggered a step forward, his face twisted in anguish. "She's a child. She doesn't hate you, Claire. She misses me. That's what kids do when they love their parents." And instead of being strong for her, his voice broke, his rage tangled with grief. "You tried to erase me." Claire pressed her hands to her ears like she could block his words, her sobs spilling over. "I wasn't strong enough. I'm not like you, Aaron. You think you can endure everything, survive everything, but I couldn't. I broke." Tyler's low chuckle cut through the storm. She's telling the truth, soldier. You made her fragile, and I was the one who picked up the pieces. Aaron snapped his head toward him, fury blazing in his eyes. Don't speak. His voice was sharp, commanding, the tone of a man used to giving orders. Tyler's smirk faltered, but he didn't back down. Aaron turned back to Claire, his chest rising and falling like a drumbeat of pain. You could have asked for help. You could have told me, written me, anything. Instead, you let him into our home. You let him near our daughter. Claire's face twisted with guilt, her voice a choked whisper. I didn't plan for this. Tyler was supposed to help me, to make things easier. But Emma, she wouldn't stop asking for you. It was like every word she spoke was a knife in my chest, reminding me that I'd never be enough for her. Aaron shook his head, tears spilling now, his body trembling from the weight of her confession. So you punished her. Our little girl, Claire, you punished her for loving her father. Claire's knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Her hands covered her face as her body shook with every breath. The sound of it echoed in the living room, raw and broken. Aaron stood frozen, Emma's soft whimpers grounding him. He brushed her hair gently, whispering reassurances she barely heard. But his eyes never left Claire, who lay crumpled on the floor like the fragile shell of the woman he once knew. The silence stretched, broken only by her sobs. Aaron's heart ached, but beneath the pain, a seed of cold determination began to grow. He could no longer see Claire as his wife, his partner. She was something else now, someone dangerous, someone who had chosen betrayal over love. Aaron bent his head to Emma and whispered softly, "You'll never be alone again. Not while I'm here." When he lifted his gaze again, his voice was steel. "You broke, Claire, but you broke in the worst possible way. And now," he swallowed hard, his chest tightening. "Now, I have to pick up the pieces for both of us." Claire let out another sob, curling tighter into herself. Tyler leaned back against the counter, his smugness muted now, watching her unravel. And Aaron realized with painful clarity, this wasn't just betrayal. This was war. And war didn't end with silence. The house was still, but it was not calm. The silence had turned sharp, slicing at Aaron's nerves like a blade. Emma lay nestled against his chest, her breath shallow but steadier now, her tiny hand curled into the fabric of his uniform. Claire remained on the floor, sobbing into her hands, her voice breaking in gasps that no longer sounded like words. Tyler leaned against the counter, watching with the cold detachment of a man who thought he had already won. Aaron's heart felt like it was being torn apart. Every sob from Claire, every smug glance from Tyler, every weak breath from Emma. It all collided inside him until one truth hardened in his chest. He could no longer stand in shock. He could no longer be passive. War wasn't something Aaron had chosen overseas. It was something forced upon him. And now, standing in the ruins of his family, with his daughter barely clinging to life, he knew this was no different. War had come home, and this time it was personal. He shifted Emma carefully into the crook of his arm and straightened his back, his body stiff with purpose. His eyes fixed on Tyler. "You think this is over? You think you can stand in my house, touch my child, and walk away?" His voice was low, calm, but beneath the calm was fire. Tyler tilted his head, feigning boredom. "What are you going to do, soldier? You've got one arm holding the kid, the other shaking with rage. I don't see much fight left in you." Aaron's jaw tightened. His free hand flexed, itching to strike, but Emma stirred faintly, her whimper pulling him back from the edge. He glanced down at her fragile frame, her dirt-streaked face pressed into his chest. Every decision had to be made with her in mind. He turned his gaze back to Tyler, colder now. "You're right. I won't fight you." His tone shifted, dark and deliberate. "Because killing you would be too merciful. You're going to live long enough to watch everything you've built with her fall apart." Tyler's smirk faltered for the first time. He shifted uneasily, eyes flicking toward Claire, who still hadn't lifted her face from her hands. Aaron moved to the couch and carefully laid Emma down, tucking a blanket over her. He lingered a moment, brushing her hair back, whispering softly, "Daddy's right here. You're safe now." Then he stood, squaring his shoulders, his presence filling the room. Claire finally looked up, her face streaked with tears, her eyes swollen and red. Aaron, please, her voice cracked. I never wanted it to go this far. Aaron's chest heaved. But you let it. You let him put her in the ground. His voice hardened. You crossed the line, Claire. A line there's no coming back from. Claire's lips trembled. I was drowning. No. Aaron cut her off, his voice sharp. You were selfish. You had a choice. And you chose him. You chose silence over your own daughter. Claire recoiled as if the words struck her physically. Her sobs rose again, but Aaron didn't flinch this time. His focus had shifted. He was no longer the husband begging for explanations. He was the father preparing for war. Tyler straightened, pushing off the counter, his smirk returning, though weaker now. Big words, soldier. But when the cops come, you think they're going to believe you. Or the crying wife and her lover. You look like the violent one here. Aaron stepped closer, his stare unblinking. I've spent years fighting men who thought they could break me. None of them succeeded. And you won't either. For the first time, Tyler looked unsettled, his jaw tightening as Aaron's calm, deliberate words sank in. Aaron turned to Claire, his voice quieter but no less firm. You want to cry? Cry. You want to beg? Beg. But don't think for a second that tears will wash away what you did tonight. You buried our child. You let another man decide her fate. His eyes burned, his words cutting. You are not the woman I left behind. Claire sobbed harder, curling into herself. Aaron inhaled deeply, his chest rising like a soldier bracing before battle. His decision crystallized. He reached for his phone, fingers tightening around it. The glow of the screen lit his face as he dialed. Tyler's eyes widened. You calling the cops? Aaron met his gaze without fear. No, I'm calling for justice. The dial tone filled the room, each beep like a drumbeat. And as Aaron held the phone to his ear, his eyes never left Tyler's. His voice was steady, his purpose unshakable. The war had begun, and Aaron Hale wasn't going to lose. The dial tone echoed in the room, sharp and steady, like the countdown of a bomb. Aaron's thumb hovered over the phone, his eyes locked on Tyler. The man's smirk had returned, but there was a flicker of unease behind it now. Claire's sobs filled the silence, her body trembling on the floor, but Aaron didn't look at her. His focus was fixed on the intruder standing in his kitchen, the man who had dared to bury his daughter. Who are you calling, soldier? Tyler sneered, forcing confidence into his voice. You think the police will take your word over ours? You come back from war, angry, unstable. You look like the kind of guy who'd snap. Aaron's grip on the phone tightened, his knuckles white. His voice was calm, deadly calm. Say another word, and you'll find out exactly how wrong you are. Tyler's smirk faltered. Emma whimpered faintly from the couch, her small body shifting under the blanket. Aaron turned, his heart softening for a moment as he brushed her hair from her forehead. You're safe, baby. Daddy's here. Then he straightened, his eyes hardening again as he turned back to Tyler. Step away from my kitchen. Tyler raised his brows, testing him. Or what? Aaron's jaw tightened. He moved closer, his boots striking the floor with purpose. He wasn't yelling. His voice was low, steady, commanding, the voice of a man who had led soldiers through fire. I've stared down men who wanted to kill me. Men who carried rifles, explosives, knives. You. He gestured at Tyler with disgust. You're just a coward hiding behind a woman's pain. Tyler's smirk cracked, his jaw clenching. Careful. You don't scare me. Aaron stepped so close their faces nearly touched. His voice dropped to a whisper. Then you're not paying attention. For the first time, Tyler looked away, his arrogance slipping. He glanced at Claire, as though expecting her to intervene, but she sat slumped against the wall, her face buried in her hands, broken and silent. Aaron didn't let the moment pass. He shoved Tyler back against the counter, his arm pressing across his chest. Tyler grunted, but Aaron's strength was unshakable. Years of discipline, training, and fury surged through him now, and Tyler realized too late that this wasn't a man he could intimidate. Listen to me, Aaron hissed, his eyes burning. If you ever come near my daughter again, if you so much as breathe her name, I will end you. Not with fists, not with rage. I will dismantle every part of your life until you're begging for the silence you thought she owed you. Tyler swallowed hard, his bravado slipping further. He opened his mouth to retort, but no words came. Aaron shoved them away, disgusted, and Tyler stumbled, catching himself against the counter. The room fell silent again, but the air was heavier, charged with Aaron's dominance. Claire finally lifted her head, her tear-streaked face pale in the dim light. Her voice was small, fragile. "Aaron, please, don't do this." He turned toward her, his expression hard, but his voice steady. "Don't do what, Claire? Protect my daughter? The daughter you told him to bury?" His words sliced like knives. Claire sobbed, shaking her head. "I made a mistake. I was weak." Aaron cut her off sharply. "Weak doesn't bury a child alive." She flinched, her body curling smaller against the wall. Tyler tried to regain his footing, straightening his shirt with a forced scoff. "You think this ends with you, Hale? You don't get to just walk back into this house and take control again. She's with me now. She made her choice." Aaron turned slowly, his eyes like steel. "Then she chose wrong." Tyler's smirk faltered completely. Aaron stepped back toward the couch, kneeling beside Emma and taking her small hand in his. His voice softened again, a promise whispered into the fragile silence. "You'll never have to cry for me again. I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." When he looked up again, his eyes burned with resolve. He wasn't the broken man who walked through the door hours ago. He wasn't the soldier lost between two worlds. He was a father, and this was his war. The air was thick with tension, heavy enough to choke on. Aaron stayed kneeling beside Emma, his hand wrapped gently around her tiny fingers, while his eyes never left the two people who had betrayed everything sacred. Tyler leaned against the counter, his smirk now thin and brittle. Claire sat crumpled on the floor, her knees pulled up to her chest, her sweater damp with tears. Aaron's voice was steady but edged with steel. "We're going to settle this right now. No more games. No more silence." "Who gave the order to bury her?" Tyler raised his chin, forcing his smirk back into place. "I told you already. It wasn't my idea. I just followed through." He gestured lazily toward Claire. "She's the one who said it. She wanted the girl gone." Claire's head snapped up, her face contorting with panic. "That's not true." Her voice cracked, raw from crying. He twisted everything. "I never said to do that." She looked at Aaron, her eyes wide, desperate. I just wanted some peace." Aaron's jaw clenched. He studied her carefully, searching her face, her trembling hands, her watery eyes. She looked broken, but broken didn't mean innocent. His voice was low, controlled. "Claire, answer me. Did you tell him to silence her?" Claire's lips quivered. She hugged her knees tighter, her gaze flicking toward Tyler. I told him I couldn't handle the screaming anymore, that she needed to calm down, that I needed it to stop." Aaron's chest tightened, his stomach twisting. He pressed, his words sharp. "Stop how, Claire? With love? With patience? Or with dirt in her lungs?" Claire flinched, her face crumpling under his words. She shook her head violently, sobbing. "I didn't say bury her. I didn't stop him." Tyler let out a short, mocking laugh. "You didn't stop me? That's rich. You begged me. You said, 'Please, Tyler, I can't take her voice anymore. Make her stop.' Those were your exact words." Claire's face twisted with horror, tears streaming. "He's lying, Aaron. He's twisting everything I said." Aaron's gaze cut between them, his pulse pounding in his ears. He was trained to read people, to spot deception in their eyes, to know when someone was trying to manipulate him. And what he saw now chilled him to the bone. Tyler's arrogance wasn't entirely false. His grin faltered when pressed, but his words were sharp, too specific to be pure invention. Claire, on the other hand, trembled like glass about to shatter. Her denial was frantic, her voice too desperate. She wasn't lying to save herself from Tyler. She was lying to save herself from Aaron. Aaron's voice was low, almost a whisper. "Tell me the truth, Claire. Did you want her gone?" Claire's face broke, her sobbing uncontrollable. I just wanted it to stop," she choked out. "Every night, every day, she asked for you. It was like she hated me, like I was nothing. I thought if she finally believed you weren't coming back, she'd stop. I didn't know. Her words dissolved into sobs. Aaron's throat tightened. His vision blurred with tears he refused to shed. She's a child, Claire. She wasn't hating you. She was loving me. And you turned that love into a curse. Tyler clapped slowly, his smirk cruel. There it is. The truth. She wanted the kids silenced. I just did what she asked. Claire screamed through her tears, her voice raw. I never asked you to bury her alive. Aaron rose slowly to his feet. Emma is still resting on the couch behind him. His presence filled the room, his shadow stretching across both of them. His voice dropped deep and final. You both disgust me. One of you carried it out, the other let it happen. You're both guilty. Claire sobbed harder, shaking her head, but she didn't deny it anymore. She couldn't. Tyler sneered, but his bravado cracked. He looked away first. Aaron took a slow step forward, his eyes burning into them. You think this ends here? No. This is just the beginning. You buried my daughter alive. And now, I'm going to bury the both of you with the truth. The room fell into silence, the weight of his words pressing down on them like a storm about to break. Aaron stood tall in the center of the living room, his shadow stretching across the floor. The truth had cracked open like shattered glass, and its jagged edges cut into him with every passing second. Tyler leaned against the counter, arrogance fading into unease. Claire sat slumped on the floor, sobbing into her knees, her body shaking with guilt and fear. And Emma, sweet, innocent Emma, lay asleep on the couch, her tiny chest rising and falling, fragile but alive. The sight of her was the only thing keeping Aaron from breaking apart. His voice cut through the silence, low and unyielding. You think I fought for this country, bled for it, only to come home to this? To find the two people who should have protected her plotting against her? Claire lifted her head, her face pale, streaked with tears. Aaron, I didn't. Don't. His voice cracked like a whip, sharp enough to make her flinch. You had a choice, Claire. Every night she cried for me was proof of how much she loved me. And instead of holding her, instead of protecting her, you resented her. Claire's lips trembled, her sobbing louder now. I was drowning. I couldn't do it alone. Aaron's chest heaved, his anger boiling. But underneath, it was something worse. Heartbreak. You weren't alone. You had her. You had us. But you chose him. He jabbed a finger toward Tyler, who straightened, his jaw tightening. Tyler tried to smirk again, though it no longer carried weight. She needed me. You left her with nothing. What did you expect? Word doesn't wait, Hale. You went off to play hero while I was here. Before he could finish, Aaron lunged forward, his fist colliding with the counter beside Tyler's head, the wood splintering under the force. Tyler flinched, the bravado vanishing from his face. Aaron's voice was low, shaking with fury. You touch her, you speak her name, you even breathe near my daughter again. I'll make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. Tyler swallowed hard, his smirk gone completely. Aaron pulled back slowly, his body trembling, not from fear but from the sheer weight of betrayal pressing down on him. He turned back to Claire, his eyes filled with tears he refused to let fall. I loved you, he whispered, his voice broken. Every day I was gone, I held on to the thought of coming home to you. You were supposed to be my safe place, Claire, my reason to keep fighting. Claire's face twisted, her sobs shaking her whole body. I still love you, Aaron. I do. No, his voice cracked, but it was firm. You don't get to say that. Love doesn't bury our daughter. Love doesn't bring another man into our home. Love doesn't choose silence over family. Claire's tears fell harder, her words crumbling into sobs. Aaron turned toward Emma, watching her sleep peacefully for the first time since he'd arrived. His chest ached as he brushed her hair gently, whispering softly, You'll never have to cry for me again. I promise you that. Then he straightened, his voice louder, filled with resolve. This ends tonight. Both of you will answer for what you've done. Tyler scoffed, trying to regain control. And what? You'll run to the cops? You think they'll believe a soldier over a wife and her lover? You're the outsider here now, Hale. Aaron's lips curled into a grim smile. Let them try. I've stared down worse men than you. I've survived hell, Tyler. And trust me when I say, You don't scare me. Claire's sobs quieted, her body shaking as she whispered, Aaron, please don't do this. But Aaron didn't look at her. He had already made his choice. His trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. The woman he once loved was gone. The family he had fought for no longer existed. All he had left now was Emma. And she was enough. Aaron pulled his phone from his pocket, his thumb hovering over the keypad. The glow lit his face, casting his features in sharp relief. His eyes burned with fury, his jaw set with determination. He didn't care what it cost him, what lies they spun, or how broken this house had become. He would fight this war, and this time he would win. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and Claire's soft sobs. Aaron stood by the couch, one hand resting protectively on Emma's shoulder. The glow of his phone lit his face as he finished the call. Yes, he said quietly. My daughter was buried alive. She's breathing, but she needs help. And you're going to want to send officers. There's 2 people here you need to arrest. He ended the call and set the phone down on the table with calm precision, though every muscle in his body was coiled like a spring. Tyler scoffed. You think they'll just take your word for it? You're angry. You're violent. You just smashed the counter. Aaron turned to him slowly, his stare like a blade. I have evidence. His voice was flat, unyielding. Emma's clothes, the dirt under her nails, the hole outside where I found her. Every shovel mark will match your hands. Tyler's jaw tightened, his confidence faltering. Aaron stepped closer, his presence suffocating. You didn't just pick the wrong family, Tyler. You picked the wrong man. Before Tyler could reply, distant sirens pierced the night air. Claire flinched, curling tighter into herself. She looked up at Aaron, her eyes wide, filled with panic. Please, she whispered, her voice breaking. Don't do this. Don't let them take me away from her. Aaron's chest tightened painfully at her words, but his resolve didn't waver. You already took yourself away from her, he said softly. When you chose him over her. When you let this happen. The sirens grew louder until red and blue lights flashed through the window. Then came a heavy knock on the door. Aaron opened it without hesitation. 2 uniformed officers stepped inside, scanning the scene quickly. The crying woman on the floor, the tall man stiff with anger, and the soldier standing protectively over his daughter. Aaron's voice was calm, but there was a quiet edge to it. She's on the couch. She's breathing but weak. They buried her in the backyard. The younger officer's face hardened, and he immediately knelt by Emma, checking her pulse, radioing for paramedics. The other officer approached Claire and Tyler. Tyler held his hands up, his voice rising. Hey, this is not what it looks like. She told me to do it. She's the one who. Claire's head snapped toward him, fury flashing through her tears. You liar. You wanted her gone. Their shouting overlapped, each throwing the other under the bus in a desperate scramble to escape blame. The officer's expression didn't change as he calmly cuffed Tyler's wrists, then turned to Claire. Aaron watched, his heart heavy but resolute. Claire looked at him one last time as the cuffs closed around her wrists. Her tears were no longer quiet but frantic, her sobs echoing through the living room. Aaron, please, she cried, her voice breaking. Don't let them take me away from her. Aaron's throat ached, his eyes wet, but he forced himself to stand still. You already left her, Claire. Tonight. The officers led Tyler and Claire out into the flashing lights, their voices still shouting over each other, blaming, denying, unraveling in real time. Aaron stood in the doorway, Emma still safe inside, and watched them go. For the first time that night, the house felt quiet. Not suffocating quiet, but peaceful. The poison had been removed. The paramedics arrived moments later, rushing past him with equipment. They lifted Emma gently, checking her vitals, wrapping her in a blanket before placing her on a stretcher. Aaron stayed close, never letting go of her hand as they wheeled her toward the ambulance. And for the first time since he stepped off the plane, Aaron felt a sliver of something he hadn't felt all night: relief. But as he looked back at the flashing police car where Claire and Tyler sat cuffed in the back, he knew the war wasn't over yet. This was just the first battle. The flashing lights of the police cruisers painted the front yard in streaks of red and blue. Aaron stood just outside the door, his arms crossed over his chest, staring as Claire and Tyler were loaded into separate vehicles. Their shouting had faded to muffled voices behind the glass. Two people who once thought they held control, now reduced to nothing more than suspects. Aaron's chest ached as he watched Claire's tear-streaked face through the window. For a brief moment, the image of the woman he once loved flashed in his mind. The one who laughed with him on their wedding day, who held Emma the day she was born, who promised to wait for him. But that image shattered under the weight of tonight's truth. She had buried more than Emma. She had buried the life they had built together. Aaron turned back to the house as the paramedics finished their work. Emma was bundled on the stretcher, her eyes open now, glassy but aware. She looked small, fragile, yet her fingers tightened around his hand as if to remind him that she was still here, still fighting. "Daddy!" Her voice was hoarse, barely audible. Aaron knelt beside her, brushing the hair gently from her face. "I'm here, baby. I'm not leaving again." Her lips trembled, a tear rolling down her cheek. "I was so scared." Aaron swallowed hard, fighting back his own tears. "I know, but you're safe now. No one will ever hurt you again." The paramedics lifted the stretcher into the ambulance. Aaron climbed in beside her, his large frame filling the space, his hand never leaving hers. The doors shut, muting the chaos outside, leaving only the hum of the engine and the soft beeping of the monitor. As they drove to the hospital, Aaron looked down at Emma, watching her chest rise and fall. The soil was still caked under her nails, a cruel reminder of how close he had come to losing her. But she was alive. She was here. That was enough to keep him steady. Hours later, after doctors confirmed she would recover, Aaron sat in the quiet hospital room. The first rays of dawn crept through the blinds, painting the room in pale gold. Emma slept peacefully now, her small frame wrapped in clean blankets. Aaron sat in the chair beside her bed, elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped. For the first time in months, he let the tears fall. Silent, heavy tears that carried everything: anger, grief, betrayal, relief. He looked at Emma, at the gentle rise and fall of her breathing, and knew that the man who had walked into that house last night no longer existed. The soldier who had fought overseas had been replaced by something fiercer, a father who would fight any war, face any enemy, to protect what mattered most. When Emma stirred her sleep and whispered, "Daddy," he squeezed her hand and whispered back, "I'm right here, and I'm never letting go." Outside the hospital window, the flashing lights were gone, replaced by the quiet of a new morning. But Aaron knew this wasn't the end. There would be trials, there would be questions, there would be nights when Emma woke screaming. The scars would take time to heal, but this time they would face it together. He sat back in the chair, his shoulders squaring, his jaw set. The war inside his home was over, but the fight to rebuild, to protect, to make sure Emma never felt fear like that again, was just beginning. And as Aaron looked at the dawn breaking over the city, one truth burned clear in his mind. They had no idea what was coming.